Everybody, it's your girl, Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, by way of little old Glassboro, New Jersey. You know it, right here on BlackSitRadio.com. What's up? What's up? How you feeling? What you up to? Look at here. I ain't got time to sit and chit chat and smile, baby, because we got things to cover, people to meet, and places to go. Okay, so I always have the most amazing guests on my show, and you know it. I mean, I honestly mean that. I don't have you on my show if you're not special. That's it. That's it. I mean, honestly. So today is no different. We have with us a very special guest, Mr. Jay Cameron from Maximum Impact Travel, with his handsome self. Hey, Jay, what's happening?
What's going on, Charlotte? How you doing today? Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. It's long overdue.
It really is long overdue, Jay. And I always talk about, we were on a call the other night and I was saying how, I really enjoy working with you, your professionalism, how attentive you are to your clients. It's a lot to me. And I know that you're in business and we want to learn about your business and what you're doing, but we also want to learn about you today. I really do. And let me say one more thing before I pass it over to you. Say this. We have this thing about ourselves. Some of us, I'm too old to say never and always, okay? Or everyone. But some of us have this thing about ourselves where, it's the saying, the white man's ice is colder. You
Mm.
ever get that? You
The
ever
white,
feel
oh
that?
yes. Oh yeah. I've heard it many times in different
Yes.
ways. Yes.
Exactly. And I really think that it applies when we consider each other for business. And somehow or another, when we do business with each other, we don't expect better. We expect something less. And so it's always a pleasure for me to provide that extraordinary service and professionalism that people may or may not have expected. And at the same time, it's always a pleasure for me to receive that. And so I just want to thank you on that end of your life as far as the businessman that you are, and then turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you working with.
Oh wow. Well, one, thank you, and it's a pleasure doing business with you as well. And I knew when I came to Panama and I had a chance to see, everyone, the way the community that you had built, the in-person community. I knew that it would be something that would align with the direction that I was going in. And I just love to see the synergy, how it's all coming together. And I can't wait for your first groups to join us in Ghana and then beyond, Brazil and who knows where it goes from there. So, but as far as asking me who I am, that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. Just like we were talking about some of your journey and how you used to be a stand-up comedian. Well, I have a story too. I used to recruit for Showtime at the Apollo. I used to be a concert promoter. I used to be a party promoter. I used to be a radio announcer. I used to sell watermelons out the back of a U-Haul truck right there at the wharf in DC. I used to own a car dealership. I've written stage plays. So there's a whole lot going on there. But, that's all of that coming together. Say it again, Charlotte.
I know you and Duran were friends.
Say it again.
Duran, Duran
Yes,
Crowd,
yes.
Duran.
Back in the day, yes. So I knew him many years, and then he recently passed away. But that's part of the DMV, and so we actually shaped a lot of the theatrical movements in that particular area. So it's that's a part of the story, but the journey really began as a child, this curious child who really was trying to find his way. I didn't, my father was absent, so I didn't have that guidance. So growing up, I was getting in trouble. I was getting kicked out of school. It was a whole lot going on. I was a handful for my mother, but it was all this energy that I had, all this creativity that I didn't know what to do with. And so as I got older, I had to figure out a way to do it. So I was always involved in some sort of project. And that's kind of what led us up to today, because I was, radio announcer, had done that for a while. and been in the public eye for 35 years. So knowing what that's like and knowing all of the different nuances that come with it. But it got to a point where, as I was getting older, I said, if I don't get out of this bubble, because I was in the US, I was on the grind. I was, starting all these different businesses, landscaping company, snow removal company, sold everything, did all of that. I said, if I don't start to travel, I said, I'm going to look up and life is going to pass me by and I'm going to see everybody else's pictures on social media and I won't have any pictures of my own. And that's when I decided that I was going to start traveling. But I didn't know it was going to open up into a whole business. But I guess if you kind of go back throughout the history of my life, I would always turn something into business. And that's what happened. But I couldn't do it at this level unless I loved it. I ran a summer camp for 12 years. So a summer camp called Life Camp, and it was a performing arts, financial literacy, entrepreneurship summer camp. And so did that for 12 years, which really prepared me for what I do now. Because with that, because people say, well, are you ever going to do Life Camp again? I said, well, I haven't really stopped. I said, what I do now is adult international field trips. And so everything that I learned, right. So everything that I learned from that experience with Life Camp, understanding children, understanding parents, understanding the needs of people, that's what positioned me to be able to do what I do now. But I've always had a thirst for knowledge. My mother says that I was always a curious child. So all of this ties into it because yes. I knew that through the educational system, something was lacking. As a child, I said, there's something they're not teaching me. There's something that's missing. And when I graduated from high school, I'll never forget the feeling that I had coming out of high school. And it was kind of like, okay, so what am I supposed to do next? Okay, I go to school, okay, so I do this. And I wasn't that college kid. I wasn't the one that could sit there and I wanted knowledge and I wanted education, but I was artsy. So I needed something that was going to focus on what I wanted to do. But the schools that everyone they were going to, it was always, I'm going into, what was the popular major? I think it was political science or business or criminal justice.
Business administration.
Business administration. And I remember I was thinking to myself, I said, okay, I want to get a dual major. I want to get a dual major in business administration and in marketing. And I wanted to go to GW and Georgetown. So I'm from DC. I was born in South Carolina, raised in DC. And I said to myself, that's what I wanted to do. But then as I started going to school, I said, you know what? I said, this is not, I said, I can't do this. I was sick. I was like, what am I doing? So I decided to take a different path. And that's when I went into broadcasting. And that's when I went to broadcasting school. I was successful with that. And that's what I enjoyed. And then I went to art school. So I went to pursue music engineering and all those different things that came along that really fed my creativity. But that was the foundation. I moved to Atlanta. Like I said, I was a recruiter for Showtime at the Apollo in Atlanta in the early 90s. Stayed there for a while. I played keyboards. I was playing in the bands and yeah, I know I told you it was a loaded question. So people are like, when are we going to see you play? It's coming. Don't worry. I got that work in the works too. But all of this just laid the foundation because I love to see people learn. And that's when the stage productions came. That's when some of the different seminars and classes and courses that I was teaching came along because I was always one for wanting to teach and wanting to educate. So then when I discovered travel, that's when I discovered how much I didn't know. Because I thought I knew something. I was like, well, I'm from America. So, right. We had the best education in the world. We the best of this, that, and the other. Then I started traveling and say, hold tight. I don't know as much as I thought I did. I need to. And so what it did was I had to deconstruct a lot of what I've been taught and then reconstruct it with new information. Then I thought about all of my folks back in the States. I was like, wait a minute. We don't know. And that's when the movement started. So anything that I've done over the years, there's always been a movement attached to it. And there's always been something with depth. It was never just about doing a trip. It was always about let's go deeper, but let it not be where it's like a talking head. So what I started doing was curating my travel experiences like I would do my stage productions.
Mm-hmm.
So the same way I would write my stage productions, I would think about a travel experience. And that's why they're so different, because it's not just going on a trip. It's like, wait a minute, somebody who thought about this, and where did this come from? Where did this surprise come from? And it came from that experience in the theater. So I did my first group trip with I had no travel experience or anything in 2019. But what I did have was that summer camp experience. And I had experience working with people, and I knew how to take care of people. And our first group trip had 35, and they had the time of their life. Then COVID, well, let me say, pandemic came. I don't know how to say it now. So it came along and it stalled things, but I decided that instead of staying home, I was going to continue laying the foundation, because I knew with the travel market being depressed, I knew that it was going to come roaring back. So that's when I went to Tanzania. I went to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro right after that group trip. And then I went back to Tanzania to lay the foundation and start building my teams. Went back to Ghana and started building the teams. But I never imagined that it would be 25 countries that we would be going to. I never imagined that I would be traveling, that I would have traveled to 25 African countries, 48 countries worldwide. It would have never crossed my mind, because I was so used to being in the bubble. So, that's to kind of give you some of it. I know you got some questions in there. I gave you a lot to.
No, listen, can you hear me okay? My audio has been tricky. Am I right?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, because I need to do something with that. But the thing is, there was so much that you said that paralleled me. And I got to ask this question real quick. How old are you?
I am 52.
Oh my goodness, you've been at this a long time. You
I'm
hit
a
the ground
veteran.
running.
I tell people I'm a veteran. I've been around for a while.
That's the truth. You look a lot younger. And so that's what kind of surprised me too. But even 52 is young for you to have experienced everything that you have. But I think it was very interesting when you said that when you came out of school, you just had this feeling like, you know, I felt like I could relate to that a little bit, because I remember when I was in my junior year. I think I was going into my junior year, and I just was like, I don't feel like I'm getting educated, and I think what we found out later is that we learn in different ways. And so even the fact that we probably got less than all of the information that we should have received, as students back then, I think it's just the style, of teaching and of learning that has just been so embedded and ingrained in our heads that we're supposed to sit in a classroom to learn. Our biggest lessons and the most that I've learned has never been sitting. Sitting.
Yeah.
It's always doing. It's doing something. It's traveling to another place and being able to compare what you thought was A plus and find out that it really is not. I always tell the story about how I met my husband, and he said he was from Panama, and that when he retired one day, this is 32 years ago, and when he retired one day, that he was going to go back to his home country. I was like, okay, that's nice. First of all, I knew I wasn't going to know the brother then. And I was thinking, and I thought to myself, why would you want to go anywhere except the US? That's nice, but I would never go with him, because where is Panama? What is Panama? We were so in the bubble, like you said, that I didn't really have a lot of interest in exploring other places. Okay, so you said that. And then you said broadcasting school. That
Yes.
started to give you away a little bit age-wise. Do they still have broadcasting schools?
No, of course not. This was a 90s thing. I tell people it's a broadcasting school was definitely, almost like secretary school. Remember secretary? That's even taking you back a little bit further.
Yes. I
So
was a
that's taking you back to the
secretary.
50s and 60s, 70s.
Yes.
So broadcasting school was something that most people didn't think about because, when we came out of high school, everybody, ironically, what we were aspiring to become will get a government job, especially in DC.
DC.
If I can get in some sort of government, whether it be city, state, federal, if I can get in the government, then I'm going to be set. But I knew that putting me in a cubicle and having me sit down was like, you might as well just throw me away at that point.
Mhm.
So I knew I had to figure something out, but it was not conventional. And
Mhm.
I knew that I was always philosophical as a child. I can go back to 5 years old and just remember having these philosophical thoughts, and then, but people not having answers for them. So
Mhm.
that's when it became frustrating, and I started seeking. But I didn't understand the journey. I just knew I was like, wait a minute, you can't just tell me anything, and I just won't believe it because I know what I see. So I wouldn't like gaslight myself. I was like, no, there's more to this. But when I came out of high school and I saw where everybody was going and what everybody was doing, and they used to tease me. They used to say, well, Jay, yeah, you're not going to do this and you're not going to be that. And do you really think that you can do this being, performing and being on stage? And I was homecoming king. I was most popular in my high school class. I was all these different things. But somehow I was not expected to succeed by my peers. Well, here we are 35 years later. There's no problem, Everybody, Jay, we're so proud of you. They're going on the trips now. Jay, oh man, we knew it. We knew it. But
And then they start telling me, I always knew you was going to be great, man.
they say, but the funny part is now with me taking the educational route that I've taken, I was not the PhD person. I was not going to be the person getting the master's degrees and all of that. But what you'll discover is that I'm one of the most educated people that you'll ever meet. When we really sit down and have a conversation. So the people with the PhDs, the multiple PhDs, the master's degrees, those are the people who now come to me for advice. So it's really interesting for
Yes.
someone who doesn't have all of that. Hey Jay, let's talk about finances. Let's talk about business. Let's talk
Mhm.
about how you move and how you do these different things. And so it's a compliment. I appreciate it, but I also, part of my message to everyone is to be true to yourself because that's when you're going to find fulfillment. And that's the one thing that I did over the years. Even when I received criticism, when some people said, well, I think that you should do this and I think that you should do that. If it made sense, then I would agree with it and do it. But there was this old saying, it's not an old saying, it's just a saying. So Jay doesn't do what he doesn't want to do. That's not true. There are a lot of things I've done that I don't want to do. But if it's something that is against my core, who I am, and then no, I'm going to resist it. And so the joy of this though is that I can say, whenever the end of my journey is, that I was able to live the life and explore and do what I believe God put in me to do. And that's just, and I'm unapologetic about it.
Exactly. Jay, the thing about it is that I walk by faith. When I started the Black Expats in Panama Cultural Relocation Tour, the cultural relocation tour was not a thing, and I didn't know that until somebody pointed it out to me. Like there wasn't nobody really doing the relocation part of cultural tours, and making sure that when you visited a country, that you get to know their people. Imagine how it would be if foreigners that came to the United States got to know what Black people really did in the United
Right.
States. Come in
Right.
with a healthy respect for what we've done. However, I, I like you, I built this business in COVID. During COVID, this was when this business was built. George Floyd changed my whole life in the sense that I had created Black Expats in Panama in advance, and I don't want to go on and on about myself. The point that I wanted to make, though, was that people telling you what you should and shouldn't do. And everybody told me I should not go to Cologne. And
Mm,
what makes our tours so special is that we go to Cologne. People come, we have a bus load anytime we go to Cologne because people come to Panama and try to hit it so that they can come with my group on my cologne days. It has been the single-handedly the most significant thing in grounding Black people to Panama is that day of the trip. That day where you get to see, you can explore all of this culture and how amazing that they've held on to it. The
Yes.
Congo culture there is deep, that they've held on to it for all this time. And they're still, got young people. They're still getting young people engaged in the folklore and the tradition. And if I had to listen to people and not to my spirit, I didn't know. I had not been to Cologne, had never been to the parts of Cologne that I go to, and I had not been to Cologne in over 14 years when
Mm.
I built that tour. And the last time when I saw it, all I saw was the depressed part of Cologne, very depressed city. But I still knew in my spirit that I needed to go. Everybody told me not to go. So I'm glad that point that out. You got to be true to yourself. And for me, it's like I need to lead where God is telling me to go. So whether you agree with it or not is kind of irrelevant, because if God really truly puts it in my spirit, that's the way that I'm going to go. And as much as I do, people say, how do you do all that? And I believe that God will equip you to do what he has called you to do. And that's just your story to me.
Well, I 100% agree with you, but think about all of the people that you've touched and have given them that experience. Now, remember when you and Al first hooked up, you like, I'm not going out to Panama. What is that? And now here you are leading people on this journey and giving them exposure opportunities that they would not have. And the reason why they come with you is because they relate to you. So
Mhm,
there are a whole lot of people doing tours all over the
mhm,
world,
mhm,
but your particular audience resonates with your message, your personality, and they see it. And then when they have the experience, now they're thinking about, maybe I want to relocate to Panama. I never thought about
mhm,
Panama. And
mhm,
they get there, and to your point, when you're doing the assignment that you've been placed on this earth to do, you
mhm,
will be given the resources, the messaging, the team, the frustrations,
mhm,
all of that comes with the territory, because that is what and it's a culmination of your life experiences that
mhm,
comes together. And it's not always going to be conventional, because to your point earlier, when we think about education, it's unfortunate that we try to put people in a cookie cutter environment and say, this is how we measure your intelligence. Well, if you can regurgitate information that we give you, some people are great at retaining information. That doesn't mean that they're intelligent, doesn't mean that they aren't.
mhm,
But some people are very intelligent, but they might have a third grade education. So they might have all of the intelligence, but they just might not have the opportunity or the exposure to that particular system, but they're very smart. If you put them in an environment where they thrive, then you find out, wow, you're very smart. You didn't go through this particular system. So to your point, again, when you are true to what you're supposed to be doing,
mhm,
then things fall into place. And that's what we see happen. And how we met is another example of that. So when you start thinking about, okay, well, I meet a lot of people. You meet a lot of people, but you can't work with everybody. so, so it's like kindred spirits. People understand, okay, they get it. All right, they know they've been through some things. People who've had to overcome and had to deal with some disappointments and had to deal with building something from scratch or
mhm,
building something from a concept, those people get it and understand. So again, when I go back through the years and I take every little piece of it, I remember in 1992. Now that I've already dated myself, it's all out there. The secret is out. I'm a 1972 baby. That's right. Born in McClellan Banks Hospital, Charleston, South Carolina, with my Gullah Geechee self. Raised in D.C. with my go-go loving Chuck Brown, R.E. Junkyard Band. So hey, it is what it is. But I remember being in Atlanta, Georgia. It was early 1992, and I had the opportunity to promote or recruit for Showtime at the Apollo. And I'd never passed out 15,000 flyers anywhere. And this was the opportunity. It's like, okay, well, let's see if this works. So we put out 15,000, my buddy Sergio and I, we put out 15,000 flyers. And we had more than 200 people come to audition for Showtime at the Apollo. This was the beginning of my marketing and promotions
Right.
journey. This was when I said, "Oh, this can work," and then that's when I decided to start doing parties and concerts, and then that gave me the momentum to go do stage plays and promote it the same way. So all of these little pieces of the puzzle come together, but when you're in the middle of it, you don't
You
know
don't
it. Sometimes
realize it.
you don't know you're just like, when is this going to end? It's cold out here. I can't believe we're going out to Greenbrier Mall and put more flyers on these cars. We're not supposed to put flyers on the cars at Lenox Mall, but we're putting flyers on the cars at Lenox Mall. But the end result was when the people came and they made it to New York and they had a chance to audition at Showtime at the Apollo. And that was 33 years ago. Yeah.
Jay, do you know how many people will not do that? You know how many people will say, I want to do this, I want to promote, I want to find talent for Showtime and won't go out there when it's cold and put them flyers out. I think that's the difference between entrepreneurs and people that just want to make money. You know what I'm saying? It's like because you have to have that inner thing in you that makes you do the things that you have to do. I work at this business 24/7. And the one thing that and that is probably the advantage that I have over people who want to compete with me is that
Yes.
not only do I work at this business 24/7, I spend a whole lot of time building personal relationships. It's all about relationships. And, the other thing I wanted to touch on that you said was um, your story is just constantly building. One thing it builds on, one thing builds on to the next thing. And I always say, like, when you compare, like, some of the people you might know who spent a lot of time in school and they can, tell you things out of a book and everything like that, that's good. That's one type of intelligence. Okay. However, I'm a business coach. And I have seen business coaches with all kind of, I don't even know what all that shit is behind their name. It's like all these million and one
Letters, the whole
letters
alphabet.
after your name. But
Yeah.
then when I ask you, what is your business? And you tell me you're a business coach. And I'm like, okay, well, how did you get so smart at coaching business? They ain't had their own business. Listen,
Mm.
come on now. Look here. I don't care how many acronyms you have behind your name. Have you walked in my shoes at all?
Right.
It's like if you have those acronyms behind your name and you can have some personal experience to add to it, that is what is going to set you apart from other coaches that want to coach business. The thing is that when you're not afraid to try things, a business coach that's never actually built their own business, a social media expert that can't get more than 15 likes on your shit.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
like, you gotta, something has to click. We need more things to make that special sauce. Okay. One of the things that I think makes entrepreneurs so special is that we recognize, even if it's later, we get those lessons, those personal experiences, and be like, okay, that I won't do again. Okay, you got check. Check.
Woo,
I can tell you. I can
woo.
tell you that right there will not happen again. Got it. That was the cost of, that's our university. That is
Yeah,
our
experience
university.
tuition.
Exactly. Experience tuition. But one of the best lessons I learned was when I was a Mary Kay consultant. I was a
Oh,
Mary Kay
let me
consultant.
find out. You telling you dating yourself. You do Tupperware. You got some Tupperware going on too.
Hey, baby, this was back in the 80s. And I was a Mary Kay consultant, just trying to get my girlfriend some points, sign up. And they used to have house parties pretty much. And you would have these little plates you put in front of the people. And back then, I mean, we were showing up mixing stuff and putting samples and all this kind of stuff. And one of Mary Kay, the main thing Mary Kay taught you, never prejudge.
Mm.
Never prejudge. And I've never forgotten that. The one thing that I learned from Mary Kay company was never prejudge. And the way I got that lesson in a way that I would never forget it was I was doing a house party for my friend I work with. And she had this one chick there. She was from Alabama, South Carolina, one of them. And her name was Mary. And so in makeup with women, we trying to get rid of this T-zone. We don't want to be all greasy and shiny and
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
That's the thing. So when I'm talking, Mary says, I likes to shine. And I thought to myself, I'm not gonna sell her nothing. So, cause this is not about shining, boo. This is about not shining. But
Not
bless your
shining.
heart, bless your heart. So, at the end, you go around. You have any questions? You have any questions? You taking orders and stuff. I do Mary last, cause I know Mary don't want nothing.
She bought
And
the
I
whole thing.
said, where she want to shine? I said, well, Mary, I said, what did you think? I said, you like to shine. And I said, that's kind of opposite. Because I'm just real like that, right? That's kind of opposite of what we're selling. So I'm assuming that you probably don't really need anything here. And she said, how much is that big thing? And back
Big
then
old
there
kid.
was that was it. She was like, so back then, it was the Cadillac baby. It was like this big contraption that had all kind of special places for Mary Kay products, right? And you could sit it in your bathroom. It had little drawers that pulled out. It was huge. And if you could sell one of those, it was $175, which back then,
It's a whole
that
lot
was
of
a
money.
lot, a little bit of, yeah, that was a lot. So that was the challenge for Mary Kay consultants at that time. She said, I want that right there. And I said, Mary, I am so surprised. Mary spent more money than anybody in the room. And you know what she told me, Jay? I said,
What's
Mary, I
that?
got to know, why did you want this? And she said, that's going to look so pretty in my bathroom.
It had nothing to do with the makeup.
She didn't even care what makeup. I had to pick the makeup out for her to go with the contraption. But Mary, that's what she said. It's going to look so pretty in my bathroom. So I've taken that and used it forever. Everything that I've done, people have business, Jay, and I'm gonna shut up. But people have businesses and they say, she's not going to buy, he's not going to buy. I'm not even going to tell them about it because they're not going to want it. And people have businesses. And when I have to ask, when you're on social media every day, and then you tell me when we see each other or we talk that you have a business, like, girl, how I don't know you have a business and you're on social media every day,
Yeah.
and you acting shy, you don't want people to know what you're doing, and they're not going to want it.
No, you said so many key points right there, and I hope everybody paid attention. One thing you said that you're relational,
Mhm.
and that's one key element of business. But then you also said you're willing to do what other people are not willing to do. So right now, so to just give a good example, you and I are having a conversation. Right now, I'm in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So I'm halfway across the world.
Mhm.
So you're in Panama.
Mhm.
And so now we're making this conversation happen. It could have
Yes.
been like I flew all night long. I was on a plane 14 hours. I could have come in, hey Charlotte, I don't know if we're gonna. It's like, no, this is an opportunity. We don't know if we have tomorrow. We don't know who's going to watch this. We don't know what's going to happen. So sometimes you have to be willing to make those sacrifices
Yeah.
other people will not be willing to make. And then you develop business instincts. And those part of what you just talked about was you learned from Mary Kay, hey, you know what? Let me not prejudge. So when you make a presentation to someone, you approach it with a different level of confidence to say, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen. Let me give 120% right now because I don't know who may be ready to come on this trip. At first, they might say, I don't want to travel at all. I don't want to do this, but they feel your energy. They feel the relational part of you. They begin to know, like, and trust you. And then before you know it, now they're bringing the whole family. And that was a person that was having all the objections, and somehow
Exactly.
all of that everything adding up that you learned over the years was what that person needed in that moment to make a decision. So that, everything that you said is spot on. And I think that if more and more people would be willing to sacrifice for success, they
Hmm.
might find success. But I'm gonna tell you now, this might rock a few people the wrong way, but I remember coming out of high school, we didn't aspire to do much more than get a good job. We might have had dreams. We might have thought, but the way the system looked for us is like, look, let me just get a good job, and then maybe I'll get a house. Because back then everybody wasn't buying houses like now. Now you got 12-year-olds buying houses. But back then, the hope was to be able to get a house, get a good job with benefits, but having a business and being able to run things and being creative and coming up with an idea and actually monetizing that was not the culture back in the 80s and 90s. Not the culture I came from, I should say. I'm sure it was someone's culture, but the culture that I came from, everyone was really focused on trying to survive. So, so there are a lot of mindset shifts that go with this. But then the thing is that a lot of us lean towards comfort, but we want success. But success oftentimes comes as a result of the discomfort. You remember the Schoolhouse Rock, Mother Necessity? You're at Mother Necessity. So Mother Necessity, basically you invented something out of necessity. So it was out of discomfort or out of a need. But if everything is always handed to you, if everything is kind of just, fed to you, then there's no need for you to work that muscle. So now, and I even think today, with a lot of things that are happening within the economy, now people are starting to think and say, wait a minute, I got to come up and do something because, I'm getting laid off and this is happening over here and it's uncertainty. So it's a spark. A lot of people will kind of say, hey, I need to tap into my ideas. I have a book that I should have written a long time ago, but I got lazy. I got comfortable. I got, used to getting that check. Now that check is not here the same way. So I got to, these recipes I've been cooking for everybody else and giving them free meals. Now it's time for me to start cooking and selling these things, Yeah.
COVID was a reset. COVID was a reset. Now, and when you think about it, okay, I come from a very small town in New Jersey, very rural town in New Jersey, Glassboro. I always mention it on this radio show because I want people to know I don't care where you come from. I don't care where you come from. You can always do other things. You can go other places. So many people I grew up with have never left New Jersey. You know what I'm saying? But I see them watching me. Like there she doing it. She's doing the daggone thing. But also I want to say that you were right. For me, my mother didn't graduate high school. So for mommy, it was like, if you graduated from high school, baby, to hear her tell it, you could run for president. You know what I mean? Like if we was to graduate from high school, you got to get that diploma. You got to get that diploma. That's what she always said. But really, for real, we were just not taught to appreciate what we were bringing to the table because my mother was a straight up entrepreneur.
That's right.
Straight up entrepreneur. Mommy cooked chicken. Mommy cleaned houses. Mommy did hair. Mommy was the first pimple buster I knew. I don't know if she got paid for it or what, but they would come over if they had blackheads in their ears. Baby, she get them big jumbo, the big jumbo bobby pins and go to work. My mother had an entrepreneurial spirit. But I didn't, and I had it, and my brother had it. And my brother gave me my first job. I got my first job from a black man. My brother was like 17 years old. That thing had contracts. He had a cleaning contract for this company, and he had another contract. My brother is still an amazing entrepreneur. And he had so much work that he hired me to go and clean this office for him on Wednesdays, and he would pay me $25. And the way I figured it out, I forget how much I was making an hour, but it was big money, right? It was only take me an hour and a half or something like that.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I told my brother the other day, I said, I wonder what you was making.
Well, you're an entrepreneur now. You know how it goes.
But mommy was an entrepreneur. We just never put a word to it. I don't even know how old I was before I heard the word entrepreneur, and so we come out with those ideas, and you're absolutely right. And when you come out, you may have dreams, But my dream was to be an actor. Or we called it actress back then. And I auditioned at Mason and Gross School of Arts.
Mm.
And the night before, I played spoons and I lost. And so I was like hungover, I hadn't really practiced.
Uh-oh.
And because I just thought, I just, go do my
Could have been be
thing,
fabulous. I got you. I know.
still live the same way. I don't rehearse anything. But when I got there, them kids was stretching and la, 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 doing all this. And oh, they was so deep into it. I was like, oh my God, and I got in there, Jay, I forgot every line.
That was
And then they
experience
told
tuition.
me, yeah, I forgot every line and never really, I guess, performed in front of people, even though I really wasn't shy and I forgot every line. And that was my dream. And so after that, I was like, I didn't need that mess anyway. And I became a secretary. But however, when I did start stand up comedy on a Carnival cruise ship in 2010, I did that and it was going really well, but it was stressful for me because I always had to write new jokes. I never wanted to do the same thing over and over. I got a whole books
Oh
and
yeah.
books of jokes. Every event I did was specialized into that particular event. And then it was just got to a point where it wasn't fun. And I was turning work down, left and right, because I still had like two other gigs. I was doing Sister Locks, and I was still working downtown as a legal secretary, and started giving work to other people. And then I just stopped. I broke it down to what means the most to me. I love women. I love women. I just think we're amazing. I just do. Particularly black women.
I was about to say that. I was about to say in particular black women. There you go.
Black
Yes.
women, particularly
I
black
agree.
women. I just think we're amazing. And I love spending time with black women and I love doing things for black women. And I decided I'll just perform for women. So I did that for a little while. And then I just got too busy doing other things. But Jay, I used that muscle that I developed in stand up comedy every day of my life. I use it when I come out and I greet everybody on the tours. It's like I always have you laughing. I use it on Cologne Day. I do my rap for them. And you get to take and you put all these little things and they build together. And it's just God preparing us for ultimately what he wants us to do. And then even as happy as we are doing what we do, and I want to start talking about what you're doing exactly, there may come a day when we need to shift and we need to
Yes.
make a move. And when that day comes, that day is just here. And I know that God has something else for me. And but right now, I absolutely love my life. I love my life. I love that I am able to craft and design my life. And I'm grateful to God, and I'm grateful to my husband for as much as he get on my nerves, and I get on his, after 32 years. But we are a team, and my husband has always been very supportive of my entrepreneurial spirit. My husband is more of he needs to make sure that the checks are there.
Of
You know what
course.
I'm
You
saying?
make sure that money right. Make sure the money right.
The checks and the insurance. Listen, you can
Get the
entrepreneur your
insurance.
butt all you want, but
Make sure
I'm
that
over
insurance is
here
straight.
with the checks and the insurance just in case. So I'm grateful to God. So, okay, so you take all of this experience and you did your first trip in 2019, you developed it over
Yeah.
COVID, and then you just went full swing into it. And so tell us about you got started traveling, then you start traveling, and then you also have citizenships. So
Yes.
talk to us about that.
Well, again, everything was kind of instinctive. I was just going as I was feeling, as I was led to go.
Mhm.
Something, and I know it was God. So I know exactly because it was in that moment. I remember thinking to myself, this is the moment, and I didn't have any fear. Now, I did not like those swab tests they would give you to touch your brain with the thing. I didn't like that. I had a little issue with that, but as far as actually going out there and doing it, I had no fear. It was a different level of confidence, and it was almost like this was the moment that I was being prepared for. But sometimes you get things in glimpses. If you see the whole thing at the beginning, it might overwhelm you. So all I did was I just kept moving forward. I started doing info sessions. Then I started focusing on YouTube. And that's when the YouTube channel took off. And I'm traveling and people are following what I'm doing. People who follow me over the years, they're watching this trajectory change. It's like overnight, it's like, he must know something. People who've been following and listening and paying attention to me over the past 30 years, they know that I've never told them anything crazy. Everything that I've told them has always been to make them better. So when they actually saw me living it and then teaching them and then taking them on these journeys, it was like, So when 2021 comes around, COVID is still in effect. People are still afraid to travel. But I said, let me put it out here and see who's willing to go with me on a trip post or during COVID. So 7 people signed up to go with me on a trip to Ghana. I said, we're going to make this the best trip these 7 people have ever had. And I will tell you, the majority of those 7 people have traveled with me 4 times since then, or 4 times total. So 7 people came in June of 2021. Then we had another 17 come in July, another 20 come in August, another 7 come in October, 5 came in October, 24 came in November. That was 2021. So that's roughly creeping up on 100 people. So now people are still in the house, but they're watching YouTube and they're saying, what's going on with Jay? So now here's the advantage. Now, like as you talked about your passion for Black women, I have that same focus and emphasis for Black men because I know our stories. I know, I have it for Black women as well, but I also understand that, as brothers like me coming up in DC, traveling the world was not our conversation. We were barely leaving the block we were on. Right. So I understood the responsibility that I had to be a Black man who's now out here, who can clearly explain what's going on, who understands the journey of being a Black man in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and all of the things that we've seen or not seen. And now I'm given this platform to be able to share this information. And it wasn't just for Black men and women, but it was for other people who have been miseducated as well. Mm-hmm. So then 2022, larger companies started paying attention. Other people started paying attention. They said, we want to go with you because we know that you're going to take care of us. We know that what you're saying is something that will benefit our people. So now more people started coming and said, we want you to represent us. And before you know it, I don't know how it happened, but by the end of last year, 2024, we had taken more than 2,000 people on our travel experiences. So from 2021 to the end of 2024, and I'm looking and I'm saying to myself, I could not have orchestrated this if I wanted to. Right. Documentaries, stories, children's book series, animated series. It's like all of these things were waiting to come out. They just needed the right platform, the right timing, the right resources. And that's what happened. So here we are, the Tanzania documentary that's out on YouTube, Fox Soul, Prime, Amazon Prime Video. We're getting ready to release the Ghana documentary. Anytime I ask anyone for an interview, they say yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, people who I look up to, I'm looking up to them. And I said, well, see if they'll interview with me. They put the call in. Yes, we'll interview with Jay. We've been watching him. We've been following. So I understand that. And that's why I don't take it lightly and I don't take it for granted. And here's the final thing. The final piece for me was when I started seeing my elders. Their children who would be around my age would come and say, I don't know what's going on, but my dad is sitting here watching hours and hours of your content. I don't know what you're saying to him, but we could not get him to turn off the YouTube because so he'll be in his late 70s, 80s, into the 90s. And they're telling me this. And I'm saying, really? And so then our elders, where many people would write them off and say, yo, we need to put you in a home. We need to let you, just ride off into the sunset. We've had people from ages 3 to 93 travel with us. We had people, at least 5 people over the age of 90, get on the plane and fly wherever. And they're bringing their children and their grandchildren. And this is what, it's a culmination, as I said earlier, it's a culmination of experiences. It takes me back to the beginning of the journey. with the showtime at the Apollo and the stage plays and the summer camp, when I see the young children and they're coming on the experiences with their grandchildren, I mean, with their grandparents, and I see the children's books and I see that emphasis, they're still there. It hasn't gone anywhere because I still want the children to learn, but I have not forgotten the elders, the ones who gave us the instincts, the ones who might not have had all of the formal education, but were some of
Exactly.
the most intelligent people we would ever meet. I look to honor
Yes.
them. And that's what this is really all about. And that's why I believe it has been so successful so rapidly.
And you know something else, Jay? When you talk about the elders, the same thing here. The older people are watching, and not only that, they getting up, coming on my tour, and moving here,
Good for
and
them.
it moving here. And I think the oldest person we had on the tour was Miss Eva, and I want to say Miss Eva is about 93 or 94 as well. And for them to feel safe enough, and then for them to get their they bring, because like you said, the kids, the grandkids be like, look, Nana is on this. I just need to know what's going on over here in Panama. Is she gonna be okay? You have some instances where they'll come with them the tour, but the things that you learn from the 3-year-old to the 93-year-old are all things too that make you better at serving your community, because the experiences are different. The things that you'll see, a younger person really needed during this tour that you may not have thought about when you're only dealing with middle-aged people. Right.
Yeah.
And then you see the things, okay, I can think about that next time because Nana had a hard time with this, that, or the other. And it just is how you build your perfection. So go ahead.
Well, all I was going to say, you asked about citizenship,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another thing that I never considered. I didn't understand it by
Mm-hmm.
design. Other folks getting citizenships, they have 6 and 7 citizenships all over the world.
Yes.
But I thought that my blue passport was all I needed. And then I get over into West Africa. And the first thing that happened through one of the DNA companies, Sierra Leone was giving out citizenship to those who could show that they genetically linked to that part of the world. So I was like, wow. Now, I didn't understand the value previously, but I understood the value when the opportunity came up in 2021. I said, I'm going to be traveling throughout West Africa, and I know people are going to want to. I need to be able to have that flexibility without having to jump through all of these visa hoops and all this other kind of stuff. So I went and I got my dual citizenship in Sierra Leone. And that gave me the green passport where I could travel all throughout West Africa without the need of visa. And it gave me that flexibility to continue building the experiences, because now I don't have to go through maybe getting denied or, all these other kind of things that could possibly happen. So then at the end of last year, 2024, Ghana decided, before the President Akufo-Addo left office, that they were going to give another round of citizenships to those who are part of the African diaspora. And
Mm-hmm.
so I put my work in Ghana. I mean, I have a retail store in Ghana. I'm buying 3 condos in Ghana. It's a lot that I brought all these people to Ghana. So there's a lot going on in Ghana for good reason. And so I made sure that I applied and was able to get my, I don't know if it's dual, it might be triple citizenship in Ghana. And the reason why this is also important is because if you're a non-citizen going to some of these countries, you may have to have 150,000, 200,000 US dollars in order to qualify for or to start a business. But when you're a citizen, it doesn't require that. And
Yeah.
so I understood the business aspect of it, but I also understood the heritage component and the ancestral component of being connected, because the intention of the colonizers, of the enslavers, even those who participated in sending those off, was that they would never return. The people would never return, and their descendants would never return. And I can clearly see where I descend from most of West Africa. Much of my DNA comes from most of West Africa, and I'm a descendant of that part of the world. So if the plan was for those descendants to never return, and by me going back and taking so many people back, and then becoming a citizen in multiple countries in that part of the world, it's really like a slap in the face to 500 years of intentional oppression,
Yes.
miseducation, disinformation that's being disseminated to really throughout the whole world. But the other part of it is this, Charlotte, and this was so key. This piece right here, I hope everybody hears me clearly. So in the US, we think that we have it. We don't need anything else. But what I discovered when I started traveling, when I went to different parts of Africa, I was like an 8-cylinder car running on 4 cylinders. So in other words, I'm running, I'm functioning, we're moving, but I'm not running at maximum capacity because I was missing pieces of the puzzle. I was missing a major part of understanding where I descended from, why
Mm-hmm.
certain things were the way they were, even in the US. So what it did was when I got the other cylinders cranking, I could show up in the US even better because now I understood some of those missing components. And now the confidence is there on a different level. Just like when you went to Panama, you were able to tap in and go to a different level because now you're out of the bubble. You're like, wait a minute, I can get on a plane and go travel the world. I can do this. I was in Colombia last week. I'm in Ethiopia today. 5 days ago, I was in Colombia, South America. Today, I'm in
Yes.
Ethiopia because I'm free. I'm able to operate on all 8 cylinders, and the fear and the hesitation and the doubts and all of that stuff when I came out of high school is gone. And that inspires people. When people say, I want to live like that, I want to do that. And you can, because you descend from greatness from the continent of Africa. You descend from greatness from our ancestors who were in the US, who paved the way for us so that we could travel the world. They sacrificed in ways they might not have been able to do it. I said, I will not disgrace my ancestors in the US by cranking on 4 cylinders when they bled and died and marched and protested and everything so I could crank on all 8. And so that's how I live. And that's why the elders are so inspired because they want to crank. I tell them, you might be 85, but you can crank on all 8 cylinders. And they come down to Panama and they see that Social Security might be a little thin in the US. They come to Panama, now they're rich.
Yeah. The cat is out the bag. The cat
Yeah,
is out the bag,
it's out the bag.
Jay. And you know something? The internet. During COVID, I said, you know something? The internet is the VIP, the MVP,
Yes,
because the internet kept us together. The
sure did.
internet kept us with information, albeit, some of it crazy. Um, but the internet has been so instrumental in connecting us. And
Yes.
that is why, talking about net neutrality and things like that, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing some real, pushes to restrict us, internet wise, because getting the message out. This interview, and like I say on the end of all my radio programs, I appreciate Devin and Riley for creating blacksetradio.com because it's just another way to put our voices in the world forever.
Yes.
Okay. And what you just said, you think about things that we're doing and you don't really think enough of it in the moment, but really thinking about how it is going to impact people down the line. Like, I've seen videos of you and your sons. So tell
Yeah.
us how this has impacted your relationship with them and how you've enriched their education through your African knowledge.
Well, I had to be honest with them because when they were growing up, they were in the traditional systems and they were
Mhm.
doing what was prescribed. But then as I started getting more information, I was able to share with them, hey, look, there's more to this story. Because unfortunately, they went to a school in the DMV that was kind of like what we're facing now. They were suppressing certain aspects of Black history. They didn't even want Black history to be taught, ironically. And
Mhm.
so because of that, when they came out and when they were coming out of high school, they were really green. And I knew now one thing I'm always modeled for them over the years. This is how you can build a business. This is how you can be free. This is how you can live. But when they started seeing, okay, wait a minute, there's more to the story, it piqued their curiosity. So now they're not afraid to travel. Two of them have been to the continent multiple times. And so they're excited. Well, the youngest one, he has not been there yet because he's been busy with college. But I told him, I said, hey, bro, we got to get you over here so you just so you can tap into some of this, so you're not cranking on 3 cylinders. We want to get you cranking to all 8.
Exactly.
But those lessons are lessons. I believe it models it for them because they see where I'm not afraid. I used to be afraid to fly. I wouldn't get on a plane. And so now they're like, wait, I have over 1 million flying miles that they're able to say, wow, look at this. So when they show up in their life, and my middle son, he's a chef. He lives in Key Largo, Florida. So now he's the one that you see on many of the documentaries. Jason, that's his name, Jason. So he now is like, okay, you know what? I can do this because he sees it. Oh, well, I'm watching, Dad, he's going out here and he's able to do it. Now they saw that while they were growing up, but now they see it on a different level. My oldest son, Eric, I still have my snow removal and landscaping company. So he's learning the ropes and going through that process. And so by him seeing, wow, Dad built this business, he's been doing this for a long time, but I've watched him work old vehicles. Now he has new state-of-the-art vehicles and bobcats and big stake body trucks and a compound where he keeps all of his equipment. Man, this is something. So now he gets to utilize this equipment and learn and kind of go through the bumps and the bruises. And then my youngest son, I used to teach a course called the Debt-Free College Degree Masterclass, where I would show people how to avoid student loan debt, because that's the new slavery, massive student loan debt, and how it locks people down. Well, he's paying for college himself. He's an RA. He's doing it. So I just met with him the other day. I was in between my trips. I said, hey, I'm coming up to Towson and we're going to sit down and we're going to have dinner. Let's talk about this. I said, what are the plans? He wants to be a coach, but everything he does, he's a natural leader. He worked for Chick-fil-A. They promoted him at Chick-fil-A. Now he's doing coaching. He's assistant director at a program. He's getting ready to graduate from college next year. So I'm looking at this and I said, and I never wanted them to do what I do. I never wanted them, but I said, the one thing I want you to do is be the best at what you want to do.
Whatever you do.
And so, and that's all I can do is model that for them and encourage them and correct them when they need correction. But just to say, hey, listen, I did it. If anything I gave you, if I didn't give you anything else, I gave you possibilities. I gave you the ability to fly if you want to fly. I'll never shut down your dream. If that's what you want to do, then go for it. You'll never hear me say, I think you need to go in a cubicle. Now, what I will say is y'all need to manage your money properly. Now, y'all don't need to be broke. I will say that. We don't do broke around here. But there's a couple other things I tell them, so there's some brother talk. I tell them, say, we don't do this and we don't do that. We don't roll like this. But outside of that, I'm so proud of them, even as they're fumbling through those early 20s and mid 20s and they're trying to figure it out. I say, you all are so much further along in many ways than I was. And so now I won't bail them out of certain situations because you got to learn. You got to figure it out. I said, I don't want y'all to be soft. I don't want you to go out here and think that, somebody's going to come bail you out. Figure it out. Use your brain. God gave your brain. Use it. Use that talent, that creativity, all those different things. Use that. And let's see what happens. And so that's what they're doing. So I'm very proud of them and just watching them navigate as young Black men in the world.
So you can add a motivational speaker to all your stuff. For sure. For sure. I'm motivated, baby. Listen, to just, chat with you forever. I have so enjoyed this.
Yes.
But Jay, I want you to leave us with some, any parting thoughts that you have, and also what's coming up next for you, and how do we contact you?
Sure. Well, this is what's coming up next for me is I'm going as the water flows. I wish I could tell you we're going to continue creating these amazing travel experiences and connecting those of us who descend from the continent of Africa to different parts of the African community around the world, South America, Central America, Africa, Europe, the U.S. We have a Gullah Geechee experience coming in the U.S. And I'm going to do a black DC experience. How about that? I got to represent home. It's this. So I'm representing the Chuck down in South Carolina, and I'm gonna do DC because can't nobody do DC quite like this because it's just the way it is. This is where I come from. So we're going to do that. I'm going to get back into the live productions. We're going to continue doing documentaries. We're going to continue with our children's books and series and educating our children. And I will be doing more speaking. You will be seeing that. I'm speaking at a children's book convention in Vegas, and I will be going around, wherever the doors and the opportunities come from, but then continuing to take people around the world. I have an amazing team around the world that makes this possible. But what I would say to each person as we get ready to wrap this up, tomorrow's not promised, and nobody's going to do it for you. You are going to have to make a decision to do it for yourself, whatever that is in your life. You have been given a series or a set of experiences that really is for someone else. Sometimes we think it's for us, but really it's for the next generation or the current generation. Somebody might need to hear your story. And sometimes there are elements of our story that are embarrassing, but that's really the power is in those embarrassing moments. That's when we can be humble. That's when we can show that we're human. Because we live in a world that's always trying to make us look like we have everything perfect and everything is lined up. And when in reality, all of us are trying to figure it out. All of us are navigating this. So whatever that thing is that you want to do, if you want to travel, if you know there's a story that you're supposed to tell, if it's a business that you're supposed to start, if it maybe, who knows what it is, whatever that is that's been given for you to do it. And don't assume that it's going to be sitting there waiting for you in a week or 2 weeks, procrastinating, thinking it's going to come around at some point. And that's what I woke up to when I turned 45. I said, oh boy, life is moving kind of fast here. I got to make some decisions. So whatever it is, do it. Tomorrow's not promised, and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the frustrations, enjoy the victories and the successes, and just take it all in and share it with other people and watch the blessings flow. Because when you invite other people on the journey with you and you impart those experiences, whatever they are, into them, then you have the opportunity to receive even more of what you've been sharing. So if you want to find me, Jay Cameron Official is where you can get me on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook. That's where I am. Just type my name in. I'm usually the first person that comes in. It's Jay Cameron, Cameron. And that's where I'm of Maximum Impact Travel. There we are.
That was awesome. And something, talk about your story, and count it all joy is the bottom line. Count it all joy,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, the way that I see it is, even if it's not the best of days, even if it's not the best of times, as long as I am living and breathing and I have my health and strength, I can I can make something happen. It can turn around.
That's
Weeping may
right.
endure for weeping may endure for a night,
Go
right?
for a night, but joy comes in the morning.
Joy comes in the morning. And sometimes, and I think my experiences too, the experiences I used to be, baby, listen, I tell people, don't let the smooth taste fool you. You know what I'm saying? Because I have been out here in these streets for a long time, and I've done some things that were just absolutely silly. Okay,
Yeah.
a lot of the pain and hardship in my life was brought on by my decisions, and I
Absolutely.
own that. I own that, and I say, I'm not one to blame other people for the shortcomings in my life or the things that I've done wrong, and I'm not going to give you the credit for the things that I've done right either. Every day we get up and we make those choices. And there have been places and times in my life where I know people say, she ain't gonna amount to shit.
Yes. 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 Yes.
But
I think I might have said that about myself a few times.
yeah, exactly. You know something? Let me tell you something. As low as I may have ever fallen in my life, Jay, I think one time I got very depressed. But besides that, the self-confidence is ridiculous. I
Yes.
mean, you couldn't tell me you couldn't tell me nothing. Even in my worst moments, I always had confidence
Yes,
that
you would rise.
I would be okay. So this was an amazing conversation. Again, it's been an honor working with you. I can't wait for October for us to do our first Ghana tour together, and then another one in November. So nice, had to do it twice, right? And then we're going to Brazil in April of
April
2026.
26th, yeah, that's right.
And what people, a lot of people who are interested in that is because they've only been to Rio. They haven't been to Salvador,
That's
and
right.
you know what I mean? So it's a culturally, a more culturally rich experience, which is what my niche is. So I'm looking forward to that. But thank you, my brother. I'm wishing you the
You're very
very best of
welcome.
days. Well, actually, I know it's nighttime where you are, so I'm gonna let you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate it. Everyone, y'all have a great evening, and we hope to see you on one of our travel experiences. As you see how we click here. So make sure
Yes,
that you get outside of the bubble and live. Hope to see you soon.
that's right. Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Whew. There you go. That was another amazing interview. And like I said in the beginning of this interview, I only have you on my show if you're special. You're special to me. I just don't do things just to be doing it because life, it just there's no time for that. So I am so happy that I had this time to sit down with Jay. Boy, he blessed us with a lot of nuggets today. He's an amazing man and he's an amazing businessman. And look him up, Jay Cameron official, and find out what he's doing. He does all kind of amazing tours, and of course, you definitely want to hang out when we do it together. I got like 4 seats left for the Ghana in November, and then we have seats left for Brazil in April 2026. And Brazil, you want to get started on that one now because it is a little bit of a cost to go to Brazil. So, with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and close out here with Brick House by the Commodores. Jay is 52, and so he may not, have experienced all of the Brick House ness when he was younger, but a lot of times people remember what their parents listened to back in the day, and that was something that came to his mind. So we're gonna close out with the Commodores, Brick House. As always, I want to thank my main man Daryl Spears, Elite Conversations Podcast Media, and also giving a shout out to Riley and Devin. Always for creating blacksedradio.com. Y'all, can y'all believe that I think I'm going to be 4 years this year doing this? I cannot believe it. That I've been with Black Seed Radio. I think November 7th is going to be 4 years for our first broadcast. So we have to do something special. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to get on out of here. You can follow us everywhere at Black Expats in Panama. I love you. I love you. I love you. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing that you can do about it. This is your girl, Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, by way of little old Glassboro, New Jersey, right here on BlackSitRadio.com. Peace and love, baby.